Jared Kushner is releasing his opening statement from his testimony today before lawmakers. The White House senior advisor detailed his conversations with 4 Russian contacts through Trump's presidential campaign. That includes a previously undisclosed meeting with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. That was in April of 2016. Here's what he said in part. I did not collude, nor know of anyone else in the campaign who colluded with any foreign government. I had no improper contacts. I have not relied on Russian funds to finance my business activities in the private sector. Joining us this morning is Vice President of Operations for the London Center of Policy Research and retired CIA-trained intelligence operative, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is with us.
Maria.
Colonel Shaffer, good to see you as always.
Good to be on.
Your
Thanks for having
take,
me.
we just read some of the opening statements here.
Right.
Your reaction.
Well, look, anytime you're in politics, especially when you're talking about being at the national level, you're going to have meetings with senior people. You can't swing a dead cat in this town without having an ambassador, for goodness sake. So the meetings with Kislyak and other things that we're talking about here are nothing extraordinary. And I think the testimony he's put forward, at least the opening, reflects the fact that during the campaign, it's really busy. You're meeting with a lot of folks, and a lot of those meetings you do not remember specific details unless something extraordinary happens. And I tend to believe that exactly what Jared Kushner is saying here is true. Nothing notable happened in those meetings. Nothing was taken away. And for goodness sake, you can't collude unless there's something to collude about. And there was nothing here to collude with. So it's completely insane.
Right.
Lieutenant Colonel Mitch Rochelle here.
Hey, Mitch.
Question, what
Sure.
advice would you give both Jared and maybe Don Jr. as they go into this testimony?
Well, look, I've been in those meetings. I've actually had to be both in open and closed hearings. So the easiest thing always is tell the truth. I mean, it really comes down to that. And much of what needs to be exposed here is the complete lunacy behind the narrative. And again, as I just said, you during the campaign, you're meeting with a lot of folks. There's a lot of information coming and going, especially for these folks who have never been exposed to the international politics like this. So I think just laying it out, just saying what happened, how it happened, who was involved, is going to be very important. And let's remember that the Fusion GPS folks on the other side of this are also being called in. And obviously I think that should be the focus of a lot more reporting on the fact that you had this opposition research group who prompted at least one of these meetings that was, it appears to me, to be a setup that the Obama administration was at least aware of regarding the fact they had to approve a visa or two to get people in.
Do you think that knowing the ties that have been pretty obvious between Hillary Clinton and the Russians and John Podesta and the Russians and others, is that going to be part of this investigation that Mueller is doing, or what do you think?
Well, I know that I've talked here on the network about that very fact. It better be by the fact that, Podesta, Martha, I loved your, the whole thing with Podesta, what happened, Maria, was amazing when you interviewed him. I mean, that was superb. And you point out rightly that there were direct financial contacts between John Podesta and the Russians. It needs to be looked at. Secondly, regarding Clinton herself, there's all sorts of meetings which happened behind the scenes, plus when she was Secretary of State, the uranium deal, which has not been fully examined. So absolutely, it should be.
I just wonder if it comes up. Lindsay Bell, go ahead.
I was just thinking about the Russian sanctions that were announced. The White House is going to agree to this bill. What do you make, though, of the part where Trump is going to have to get permission from Congress to pull back any sanctions?
Well, that's not extraordinary. I mean, we have to remember that Congress did the same thing regarding Iran and some of the things the Obama administration did. President Obama could not remove all the sanctions against Iran because of the very tripwire that Congress put in there. I don't have any problem with Congress putting forward the idea that there has to be strong sanctions, that they have to be the ones who relieve. And look, I think the sanctions are the right thing to do. Putin, let me be clear on this because I don't want to be, I've been accused of being too supportive of Russia. Putin is a thug, and Putin is out to do one thing, is to reestablish the old Soviet empire and its influence. So we cannot be naive to think that that's not where this is all going. President Trump has been doing the right thing of trying to push back very hard, promising Europe energy, especially Poland and other places, and saying we're going to be part of NATO and Article 5. So I think this is another part of continuing to show the Russians we're not going to allow their just kind of, to quote Chuck Schumer, namby-pamby, moving back into the world of influence.
So this is Lee Carter. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, Lee. Good morning.
There's so many issues that are being conflated here. There's a criminal investigation. There's a, there's this intelligence issue, and I think everybody's just pointing to Russia and not really sure what to make out of it because everything's getting tangled into one big thing. How do they separate these out so that you can see what's really going on here? Because when it's a catch-all Russia, and it just ends up being there's something bad there, but how do they separate it all out for the people?
Well, that's the key thing. The other side has tried to do exactly what you just said, just commingle it so it becomes one big mass, and it all points to collusion. We have to be very clear. Basically, we have to, like the Reagan administration, message very clearly on the fact that Russia is up to no good. There's things we must do to defend our equities. Syria is a place where we can work with them. Other places we cannot. Secondly, we have to make a very factual case, as we just talked about, regarding what are the facts regarding the investigation. And if I were the president, I would fire Mueller, the special prosecutor, because it's very clear it doesn't look like he's going to be looking at the Clinton uranium deal and all the issues relating to Podesta and others who actually were involved with the Russians. But you have to make that very clear. Third and most importantly, the president has to clarify for himself and the American people. I would even say maybe even in sort of a national speech, maybe a primetime speech, saying, these are the things that the American people have to understand about what his intentions are regarding Russia, and these are the false narrative things that need to go away. He's been very good about communicating that, and I think here's where he could do a superb job of just laying out the case of what's really going on.
Yeah, I don't know about firing Mueller, though. I mean, that would create a huge ball of wax. I mean...
I think you could fire him and replace him. Nothing to say you couldn't have a special prosecutor. Just say, this guy's not cutting it, he's not going to look at all the areas he should, and he needs to be moved on.
The left and the mainstream media would run with that.
Cover the New York Times, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.